Okay, I'm back to continue in just a moment. So, when all of these different things had happened with vehicles and cars, and then that bus trip occurred, even though I just laughed about it tonight, and I've been able to laugh about it, I hadn't had a panic attack in a very long time. And I didn't have a full-blown panic attack, but something very close to one. And that was, where I felt like I was sort of hyperventilating. I had a lot of anxiety. Really didn't want to get on a bus again. So it was very odd, given the situation and the fact that I had this tailbone injury, that Michelle Erickson wouldn't arrange for me to be on a train instead of a bus. And I think that was about the first time that I really talked to her or heard her name very much, because I believe that I was first talking to Marie Scanlon, and they were working together, but her name, Erickson's name just didn't come up that often. It was mainly Marie was the main contact person that I was talking to. And I knew she was dishonest because of how the bus thing was getting set up at the last minute. But then I think I found out that the other one had something to do with it too. And I think that I was talking to her, or Scanlon was talking to her about switching that over, and they wouldn't do that for me. And they also knew, I told them that I was having a lot of very severe pain with my tailbone, and could they space the visits instead of having, I would really, at first they had the visits 2 days in a row per week, and then they wanted to have 1 day for the first part of the week, and then 1 day the second part of the week. Basically, they knew I was trying to work part-time in Birch Bay, and they knew that splitting up my week in the middle of the week twice was going to be harder for me to work around with work, rather than keeping the days together. And that was also requiring me to spend 3 hours on a bus all the way over with no accommodations for my broken tailbone, so it caused a lot of very severe pain. And then and then a trip back the very next day. My tailbone didn't even have time to recover or take a break. It was extreme pain. It was excruciating. And then they wanted me to do that 2 times a week. So, 6 hours of, 3 hours, or more than 6 hours of 3 hours there, and then 3 hours back right away, and then going up there again, and then going right back again. And sometimes they were leaving only 1 day in between those 2 trips. So for example, I would be leaving Tuesday, 3 hours there, 3 hours back, and then Wednesday I'd be in Birch Bay, and then the very next day they wanted me to be in Wenatchee again and take a 3-hour trip there and 3 hours back. And they did this, they scheduled it that way after they knew that I had a lot of extreme pain. And when I asked them, because of the overcrowding on the bus, and when I also asked them for a train, not just to accommodate that because of my anxiety, they refused to do that, which was really strange. So then all of these things explains why then I was in New Mexico, and I asked the FBI if they would just, could you help me out with a bus ride, just a bus ticket? And they said, where are you going? And I said, I believe I was either I was sort of vague because I didn't want the FBI to know exactly where I was going. So I either said the East Coast in general, or I specifically said Georgia. For some reason, though, I almost think that I was really guarding where I was going because I didn't want someone to set things up ahead of time against me. So I sort of want to say that maybe I just told him the East Coast. And then I was at this truck stop, and this truck person then showed up, and he didn't look like an older truck person, but he came over and sat right next to me, and he was a Marine, or not a Marine, Army person who drove a truck. And I kind of wondered maybe if the FBI had sent him instead. And, you know, like they wouldn't give me a bus ticket so that I could be safe. So they sent this truck driver, or maybe somehow he knew. And the thing about him is there were only two things that gave me pause. Well, three things about him. In general, okay, for most of the entire trip all the way down to where I was going, we laughed a lot. I told a lot of jokes. I made him laugh a lot. And then I laughed too. So there was a lot of joking and laughing. However, that was after it was after sort of this exact same Canada scenario where, you know, I'm describing how I was at Bruce and Corinne's and I'm getting a place to stay at this house. But then all of a sudden I feel the same technology at their house that happened in the United States. And not only are my son and I twitching and being exposed to the same technology in that room, the toys were going off, being set off electronically. They were going off randomly, just as had happened at the house with me and my son. And he came over, Bruce went over to the toys and just said, oh, the battery's not working or whatever. He made an excuse for it, which sort of was like, let's just let bygones be bygones and think that all of those toys, that electronic toys that my son at our house were just battery problems. No, that was not a battery problem. I mean, I had brand new batteries for all of those toys. They were all turned off, and my son and I were getting spooked because, and the cat too. The cat would jump because all of a sudden one of the electronic toys would start playing a song or doing different things. For example, one of the things I had for my son was a little a tool bench, and if you pressed a certain button it played a song. That tool bench was playing songs on its own. So it's kind of funny that, you know, I don't know. But so as I say, I kind of thought it's almost like I felt like a captive, like a hostage, where somebody had you in a cage for such a long time, and they've tortured you for such a long time that if you escape, they give you a place to stay. Someone's giving you a little place to stay for a little while, and then they're kind of reminding you that that's still right there, that it's not going away. Maybe they're part of it, but you don't want to believe it because you need a place to stay, and they're saying that they're going to help you. So it's almost like you have to accept. It's almost like the United States has been committing hate crime, and Canada has tortured and committed hate crimes, and yet in a very weird way they're trying to condition me into accepting it. And then if they give me any kind of a break at all, it's almost like a mafia thing. It's like, okay, and here's, you know, bzz, they shock you several times, and then they pretend, and then they act like they're your friend and they're going to help you at the same time. I mean, it's hate crime, and they've been trying to pass this off as MK Ultra, which is also very, which is exactly what people who are victims of MK Ultra have gone through. In the 70s, they were getting different kinds of electric shocks. They weren't getting the kind of technology torture that I and my son experience and my parents experience. It was a different, they had different forms of energy and technology then, and that's what they used. Now they use all kinds of things. And they still have the same objective of trying to ruin lives, keep people in line, and forcing them around to see where they go. Like, you know, behavioral modification in a sense of, well, let's see if we poke and prod this person, which direction they'll take. But we don't want them to do that. In fact, we don't want them to do anything at all, so let's make sure we keep torturing them until they quit. And then they're calling it MK Ultra when really it's hate crime. They want me to quit because, not because it's in the best interest of the nation. There are many things that I am capable of and that I've been capable of that would benefit the entire nation and benefit kids and adults and a lot of people, and contributions that I could have made. But instead, people have wanted to rip me off by trying to access stealing intellectual property, trying to make a run of things with my ideas and never giving me any credit, and then just torturing me so that I look like I can't do anything. So here in Canada, they were, so I'm saying here in this situation, in Canada, that's the kind of little reminder that they're doing, little heads up of, guess what, we know about and we are part of this same kind of crime. And we just wanted to remind you of this, and let's just pretend that it's not happening at all. And if you'll keep your mouth shut and pretend that it isn't happening, and if we see that you don't say anything, then, you know, we're going to be great friends. So the same thing happened with this truck driver. He said he'd give me a ride to the East Coast, and here he is, U.S. Army, coming out of the blue, out of nowhere. And I didn't find out he was U.S. Army until I was already accepting a you know, rideshare or whatever, traveling with him. And one of the first things that happened is he wasn't really overly friendly to begin with. I mean, he was sort of casual and friendly when he was inviting me to go with him. And then there were at one or two stops. At one of the stops, he was adjusting something inside of his car that looked like alien, that was an alien something or other. And he was talking about aliens. And I don't believe in aliens at all, so that, you know, if somebody was trying to scare me or weird me out with that, or have me think something has to do with that, I don't believe in aliens. I mean extraterrestrial ones. And then basically I got shocked. I actually got tortured while I was sitting inside of his truck. And I knew that he knew it because he was watching me when it happened. And then he went outside and he said that he had this little box. He started making a big deal of like, well, it might be coming from this box. And he started making adjustments to antennas and like metal stuff. And I really, because I didn't know where everything was coming from, I thought maybe it was coming from this box thing that he had that had different things attached to it. And then he was outside on the other side of my window when I was inside the truck, working on something from the front and working on this antenna and moving it all around and being kind of weird. And again, it was the exact same thing. It made me afraid because I had just been tortured again while around him.